All right, so festive season very much into high gear, isn't it? Everyone getting ready for the holidays, traveling, going away. But of course, everyone likes to go out to restaurants as well. The hospitality industry, though, facing a major challenge. And yes, you can guess it. We're in stage 5 at the moment. These rolling blackouts. So restaurants particularly affected as they try to accommodate year-end parties. But now, of course, it's going to be a lot trickier when it comes to the lights being off. And speaking of power being off, Restaurant Association of South Africa's CEO, Wendy Alberts, joining us normally via Zoom, Wendy, but I believe you got blackouts and load shedding where you are at the moment, so you're on the phone this morning. The irony of our conversation. How do you even begin to run a restaurant during these rolling blackouts?
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting us today. Absolutely, 7 hours a day, you can imagine the operational nightmare that we're enduring to bring out the correct productivity to keep our businesses running. It impacts the operational performance, the safety elements, the changeover in systems, the system shutdown. We obviously have the cost of running the generator. It's noisy, and we also need to look at site-specific areas, whether they can have generators in some of those places or not. So all these elements definitely are placed on challenging aspects for us. So although many restaurants have made an extra investment to keep their businesses going, a generator doesn't simply just replace electricity and allow us to run our businesses as favorably as what it does through non-shutdown time.
No, I was telling Tumza earlier, a friend of mine who owns a restaurant up in northern part of Johannesburg, saying to me that in the last, and this was a couple of days ago now, but in 9 or 10 days, he'd spent close to 30,000 Rand, Wendy, just to keep his generator going, because we forget as a restaurant, it's not just during business hours. They have to keep fridges going overnight, for example, and all that sort of extra added cost. Are we hearing, and it wouldn't surprise me if you say yes, Wendy, but I'd like to get the answer, are we hearing about more and more restaurants closing down? Because we must be at that point now.
Look, we're quite fortunate in our industry that there are, we need to fragment the industry because there are certain sites that definitely cannot get generators, certain shopping centres that don't allow our restaurants to have generators, there's certain sites that just simply can't lend itself for that operation to have a generator. So those particular restaurants are definitely in far more dire straits than other restaurants who have made an extra investment to be able to largely be off the grid, to be able to run their establishments. But with that comes a huge cost. There's also the increased food waste, the productivity that's down, and different challenges that come to effect in terms of what we can offer on the menu and what we can't. There's certain equipment that we simply can't run on generators, and it also depends on the type of generator that you've got. So these are all the components that definitely go into the establishments that we've got. But typically, if we just look at it on the landscape, there's definitely a switch over time with the generator, which has an impact on productivity. Things goes down, our credit card, sometimes they take a long time to come up. We frustrate customers, they're rushing. Sometimes customers can't get to their bookings because of the traffic jams and the robots being down. And then the other big challenge is obviously the network, and whilst they're also impacted by the load shedding, they also need to make provision to keep consistent thread of services to us, that we don't have this impact where we cannot have connectivity to reach restaurants or to change bookings or to let restaurants know that we're late. So that also has a massive impact where people simply can't reach us through no fault of their own. So these are all the elements that we come in. The cost to maintain our equipment is excessive because it needs to happen so much more often because of the switch in the voltage that goes with some of the equipment. You can just imagine we need to have a staff member permanently trying to fill up the generator with fuel. We need to have them switch it over, the time frame, the light bulbs going, etc. So they're all challenging elements, and as much as what we're doing, everything we can to survive, the small element that we can to sustain our industry, we also need for this load shedding to come to a halt and end like everybody else in South Africa, because it impacts everybody from a point of depression to a point of performance.
I just want to circle back, Wendy, as I say goodbye to you, just the last answer. You mentioned that some restaurants, depending where they are, some are inside shopping centres, some are in these outside shopping centres. And you made a good point, because I've heard this before, where the landlords or the owners of shopping centres aren't allowing certain shops and restaurants to put things like generators in or solar because it's not in their lease or they haven't signed a contract that allows for that. Surely we are at a point now as a country where if you own a business, you need to be able to do whatever you can, however you can do it to keep your business going. But I've heard this from a few people that landlords aren't letting restaurateurs do what they need to do.
Absolutely. And it's a conversation that we constantly have with our restaurateurs to refer back to the lease and the clause in the lease as to whose responsibility rests within those leases to provide services to the restaurant. And as we've sifted through many leases, we've seen that the responsibility does, in fact, rest with the landlord to make provisions. And these are elements that we need to continue to tackle with the landlords to make those leases effective, that we can constantly have power. And it's the same with the service providers networks. They also charge full premiums to be connected. Yet in South Africa, we're only running at 50 or 40% connectivity on some of those networks. So we also need to put more pressure on the cell phone providers to consistently keep a network, because if we can all stay connected, that will certainly eliminate some of the pressure that we've got. And hand in hand with that, obviously, if we can get the robots sorted, we'll be able to get people through to places so that they can enjoy meals at the restaurants.
Yeah, in the end, we just need the blackouts to end, but it's not going to end anytime soon, so we try and find solutions, and that's a good suggestion as well. Wendy Alberts, always good to speak to you, CEO of the Restaurant Association of SA. I'm just curious if anyone knows of a restaurateur who has sadly had to close their doors because of blackouts. I'd love for you to please get hold of us. You can tweet us at ENCA. You're welcome to tweet me directly at Gareth Edwards SA. We'll try and do a follow-up interview and speak to those people who've sadly had to close their doors, and as a result of that, jobs being lost as well.